Hello and welcome back to Factorio. My name is abucnasty. In the video last week, we went and designed a new Nauvis hub. So the goal of this particular video, or like what I'm at least going to be trying to do, is I'd like to go and implement that new design and move it into my actual base on Nauvis. So this is going to be quite the ordeal because I'm going to have to drain all the science that is currently actively in here. So to start with that, what I'm thinking I'm going to wind up doing is I want to get completely rid of it. So the first thing I'm probably going to be wind up doing is I'm going to switch to research productivity, just so that we can start draining all the sciences. And then what I need to do as well is I have a little automation that's set up when Promethium is low to launch the biter eggs automatically. So, and this is just a little timer since the last time I wound up actually launching the eggs. So if I'm just going to have this here, this is just a manual disable, and you can see here this now tells me that the biter export is manually disabled. That's just a acceptable signal, and this is a manual fire that I have. I set all these up just so that I can easily turn on and off when all these eggs launch. So right now I don't need them. So we're going to have them completely off here, and the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just continue to drain all the sciences. Now, I'm probably going to wind up just going and setting all the requests to a lower value. But one thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to turn off trashing the unrequested items. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start turning off the science import here for a little bit. That is going to create a little bit of a weird scenario here because we're going to start having these flashing lights. So, and it's just because it monitors, are you requesting anything, and then does a different subtraction back at the display over here. So this is all globally synced. So maybe what we'll do instead is I'll go ahead and keep these things requested, but I'll just change their values. So let's just say let's just do 50 here, and then just across the board let's make this 20, and then this will be, instead of 1.2 million, let's just make this 120,000. And for Promethium, I am going to say I would like just give me all the Promethium you can. That's fine, because the ship that's currently above Nauvis is just going to sit here until it finally has removed, let's see how much we have, 558,000 Promethium still sitting inside of it. So we'll let that all drain out, and then it won't be able to leave until it gets biter eggs again. So that's fine. And then, oh boy, I even see that there's my little symbol. Good. So for this, let's just drop this down. We don't need this amount, so we'll go with 150k. And oh no, not that much. We'll just go with 150. There we go. And then for I should have a more consistent schema for these things. So there we go. So that'll be smaller amounts. They won't remove them all. This will continue to run. Okay. So the next thing that's really important for this is I need to keep Bioflux alive the whole time, because I don't have a good way of bringing capture bot rockets over here. Right, so over here, like, this is an isolated bot network, so you can see that here, that they're not touching at all. And if I press L and look at the logistics, I can see that it is its own, completely isolated from the core. So core is everything else, and this is isolated. I did that mainly so that the bots don't fly everywhere else. And I also accidentally, when I constructed this, there were so many bots that were in there, and I forgot that when I constructed it, to remove the bots naturally somewhere else. So there's just 30,000 logistics bots just sitting inside this network, when it definitely only needs 100, or like, look at this. This needs like maybe 50 bots right now. So maybe like just somewhere around that, just less than 100. Yeah. So that's something to fix at some point. Not today. Today, what we're going to focus on is tearing down the hub. So I'm going to let this run for a while and let the science drain, and I'll be back after this runs for a while. Still waiting on Promethium science to completely drain out, but one of the things I'm trying to figure out now is kind of placement-wise where I'm going to put this giant hub. So we could place it somewhere here, and this would actually kind of fit pretty nicely with the current layout of all of these, basically where the rail network currently is. I'm trying to decide right now, because ultimately I want green space all the way around it for planting trees. And so I guess the first step, just to get rid of everything, is we could probably go and, let me grab a blueprint here for destroying all the tiles. So very sorry bots, you're gonna have a wonderful time destroying all this stuff. Let's get rid of all the tiles. And fly, my pretties. Okay, and then let's have the Spidertrons help out a little bit. Okay. So they can help start to clear some of this. Wow, look at the FPS just completely going away. Alright, so this is going to be just absolutely ridiculous to watch. Cool. Alright, so they'll start getting rid of all that, and I can kind of see a little bit better where all the green shrubbery is. So, I'm hoping I have enough storage space for this. Let's just preemptively, let's go ahead and add a few more of these. Because I'm going to quickly start running out of storage, and it's going to be fun. Alright, there we go. Okay, so I have had to upgrade my Spidertrons. They were running out of power, and I need more of them. So we've gone from 8, we are now going to go up to 20 of them. So that is the new concept that I'm going to have here. So I've been rebuilding them, and had to import some new things from Aquilo, but now we have more portable fusion reactors, which is nice. So they're slowly going to go and expand everything out, and then hopefully once they're all done, they should have more charging capacity so that number of bots they can actually wind up handling. So this is probably still under, but at least it'll help. So they will be used now for, and the just bot swarm of hell is going around everywhere, and draining science. So this is a major undertaking. This is a fun project. So yeah, so these will be my new Spidertrons that should be faster than before and should be able to go and help migrate the base. So look at those robots go. YouTube's gonna absolutely love it when I upload this. Sorry for the compression ratio. Just watching this, just compression just going on. But they're doing their job. Alright, while I'm still waiting here, I'm going to continue to do the pre-work of redesigning the rail network here. So these are not great blueprints, that's why I'm just keeping them for myself. But the overall, they wind up working for like some basic elevated rails. So that's what I'm currently doing. And these guys are slow because they're still recovering from their exhaustive stuff that they were doing, so we'll keep them up there. Yes, I know you don't have a path. You should be fine here in a second. Thank you. All right. So the idea is I'm going to try to just make more room around this area. So I'm just going to bring this rail network all the way to the top, so there's just a very large area around here, and then hopefully we'll have a little bit more free space over here or down here. All right. So we've got, at this point, this ship is completely drained at this point, so we're getting closer to the point where we don't have any more science left. So only got 22% left of our available buffer for research prod, so we're slowly continuing to remove more of it, which is good. Progress-wise, I've removed all of the electrical wires that were in here. I'm thinking I'm going to want to place it in here, and ultimately then take some of these solar grids out and then probably rerun the stone just kind of around on the outside. I don't quite need it in here, all this amount of stone for the military science, and I'd rather just have it like completely out of the way so that I can have a nice row of tree farms here. And then I still need to continue to work on the rail network, but we're making progress. We've got this section now kind of outlined, moved slightly more over this direction, and then we just need to move this now straight up. So, and we're getting close to being able to fit this, so just kind of like space-wise, we're getting closer and closer. So like ultimately, I'd like it somewhere like this, which will be kind of tough to actually place with the current issues that I have. At least the tree farms on the north side. So it's kind of annoying. This water and just the location of it, there isn't really a good place on this map other than like maybe here, which is like mainly just plantable areas. So it's just such a massive blueprint, so getting this to fit anywhere reasonably well is going to be tough. So This isn't too bad, it just means that we don't have as many, like, pollution control on the bottom, but we could always just have, like, a separate little mini tree farm and see where that goes. I think, like, just surrounding this in general already is going to make a pretty big difference, so we'll go and assume that, so. Alright, back to manual labor for me. Alright, we are finally completely out of Prometheum Science, which is wonderful. So we've drained that part. The next part that I want to drain is, let's basically stop requesting everything except for Space Science. So I'm going to turn this one off, stop requesting this, and we will stop requesting this. So now, what we'll do is strategically kind of go through all the sciences. So let's go and let's drain completely bot speed. So let's just run this until we have no more of our electromagnetic science. Because I know that I want to reroute the military science, I'm going to go ahead and remove this here. And I will let this slowly drain as well, and then we'll reconnect this afterwards. You know, I might as well just do it all the way up here, just because I don't know exactly if I'm going to route to the left or right. That'll be good. And then we'll let this completely drain here with, like, weapon damage or something. What's nice is I can finally show how this whole purge works here. So, there is a signal here that will send this little skull icon whenever it's not locked out. So, right now I have it completely locked out. I can also manually turn it on. So this will just, the purge will actually just go ahead and turn on. And what happens is then down here, once this is enabled, and I need to make sure that I have the lockout turned off. There we go. So purge is in effect. So all these drain here, and they start destroying all of our beautiful agriculture science. So let that run and just let everything purge until we've completely drained this science. I haven't seen the base in this state, just having this little science still in it in a long time. So this is quite a experience to watch. All this science finally just drain completely off of all these belts. Seeing slowly just everything is going back down to nothing. It's amazing just how much of a buffer is actually held on these belts themselves. Alright. So the base is completely empty at this point, or at least almost all the science is gone. So we're gonna go for the final, just removal of all the additional belts that we no longer need, and clean all this finally up. So let the bots go and fly around. Grab all these belts. What are we up to just belt-wise? So we have 452,000 refined concrete sitting around. The turbo transport belts are in the 60k mark now. Just slowly rising up. And then, finally, we're going to delete here. Go ahead and issue the command once these are all done to finally tear down all the labs. Now, this is probably going to bother some people here, but I am currently requesting all the science, including legendary space science, I'll slowly get eradicated into nothingness. So, I'm doing this because, mainly in the logistics network, if I have any science at all in it, it messes with my overall dashboard, and then I just don't want that. I want them all on belts or in the hub, and that's the only place, so. For that reason, we have these little destructions creators here that are just going to destroy all the extra science that happens to get created or comes off of the belts, just to make things a little bit easier. The science was consumed for the most part, so we're in a decent spot now. We'll let them continue to destroy these belts. This is why I tried to drain as much as possible beforehand, because this just takes so much longer to destroy when they are fully stacked with science on them. Another fun thing that I've realized while standing here is that I should just be throwing this directly into space, because this is the most UPS performant way to just get rid of spoilage. For the longest time, I have just been holding spoilage effectively just in Nauvis, and I've been destroying them like this. And the throughput is significantly smaller, and I have so much space that is being used on the hub. So really, the easiest way to do that is just have these ships just dump them, and that's effectively what I'm going to be doing now. And I realized it because I was going back to looking at the hub, and I'm like, why are these running in overdrive mode? Well, it's because we have some spoilage that has now kind of sat up in the hub, and there's no reason to have it in there, so we'll just dump it into space instead. Alright, the time has come to tear down all the old labs. This is going to be painful for me. But on to new and brighter and shinier things. Here we go. And just like that, the old hub is completely removed. We just have the current cargo landing pad that is going to be here just for currently providing us Bioflux. And then all the rest, everything else that's in here is going to get trashed, removed from the hub, and will go to our general purpose storage. And by general purpose storage, that's all sitting over here. The science destroyers are still working hard overtime to destroy everything. But that's fine, because that'll give us plenty of time to now go and start building the main new hub in this location. Oh, the poor bots. It's almost like I don't have any power hooked up to all of their roboports. Small oversight. I very drastically underestimated how many blue undergrounds I wound up using, so I've asked the freight ship to start picking up a lot more of them so that we can start bringing it over. Alright, we're gonna need I'm just gonna ask for 1,000 of them. And we're gonna go straight directly back to resupply from Vulcanus. Go trigger that for now, and then we'll have it come back and forth to Nauvis. So, yeah, we desperately need more belts. But most of everything else here is finished. So, looking good. The labs are currently all disabled, so that we can let them all fill up completely, and then once they're all filled up, we'll start kicking off the new science machine. Alright, so we finally have almost everything completely finished. So we already have trains migrating over to the new provider for Calcite. And we also have a bunch of leftover trees, which I'm just going to keep for now, just for a little bit of pollution absorbing effects. We have all the trees farms now out here running here. And they're slowly removing pollution. Right now they're consuming about 122k per minute, which is not going to be enough to sustain the amount from the biolab, so I'm definitely going to need another ring of trees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and do, though, now finally the final transfer of transferring the hub, which will be a fun time to do. So I'm going to go ahead and turn all this off because I have all the items that we needed. We're going to let everything get trashed out of the hub. Continue to allow Bioflux still for the giant farm here. And then we should be in a good state to finally transfer the hub. I'm going to let everything get evacuated from here. And then we will do the final transfer. Alright, here we go. I want to be relatively quick about this because if I run out of Bioflux, like I said before, that's going to be a big problem. So, hope the bots can bring it over pretty quickly. And I got to remember kind of where I placed the wire. I had it somewhere in here. So I need to set the request on the hub. Somewhere. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it. Alright, so just red wire here. Cool. And then I need to just click set requests. Awesome. So that should automatically start receiving the science, which is perfect. And we are live. That is a beautiful sight to watch. Spend so much time in the editor, and then finally ship it out, and then finally get to see science bars start to slowly go up. All the science starts to come in, at least from space. We still have to do and manually get all the other science to come in, and I'm still working on that. Next thing for me is now that we have this figured out, and we have now a new request hub here. Now I just have to basically route the new science, and I want to get another ring of trees around here if I can squeeze it in there. So this is going to be a little bit of a tight squeeze, just location-wise, whereas I've chosen it, but we're going to get at least one more ring. I can feel it. So now that we're actually out here, I realized that there was a slight problem. With this, before was outputting like this here, and since it's always the right-hand side in the direction of travel, when it's reversed, that's fine. But when you are in this orientation, it doesn't work. So over here, this is perfectly fine, and I'm also missing power poles, so that's a good time. I gotta correct that as well as an issue. But basically, this is okay in this situation because it comes in on the right-hand side. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just going around and fixing these so that they are now reversible. So I will update the blueprints accordingly to deal with that situation properly. But making progress still. I'm gonna let the pollution die down for a little bit overnight. So while I do that, I'm going to go ahead and physically allow fighters to launch again. And I'll let you, or bless you, with this beautiful view here. So now begins the painstaking process of getting all the belts routed all the way back to the main hub. So I'm going to start slowly working on that here, and I'm going to use my new trusty Spidertrons to do the job for me. I have to do that for all the sciences on Nauvis, so this will take some time for me to complete, but shouldn't be too bad with the Spidertrons and just running around and adding more and more belt segments everywhere that we need to go. Alright, I finally got all the belts routed. So the next thing that I wanted to kind of talk through was, I'm kind of waiting on pollution to kind of die down still, so these, and also for this to fully saturate again, so we're letting this all kind of back up and get to a decent spot, and have everything kind of flowing and eventually get to a natural state, so I'll let that'll take us still a while for that to happen. And then otherwise, the first thing though, figure because this is super satisfying, I waited until this moment to showcase this, so let's get the Spidertrons exactly in position. And there we go. Ah, science. The reason I'm including this little section here is what I figured I would do to read the capacity of the belts was just to read just this small section here. So instead of reading the entire belts and then making a calculation based off that, I'm just going to read this small section. I'm assuming that's better for UPS. Reading tens of thousands of belts and holding the entire belt is probably not great. I have no idea. I haven't actually tested that out, but that's the idea. We'll just read this small section and then it's always constant. I don't have to change it whenever I have larger belt sections and when it's from the right or the left, and that way I can just read this small section. So that's the idea. I'll have to change the science monitor to read that, but man, this pollution is taking forever. Only there was a solution that we could go with. Might look familiar to some people. We're gonna run these bad boys for a little while. Alright. So, it is now the morning. Currently working through adding a couple more of these pollution absorbers here. What's kind of been interesting about this experiment so far, just as I'm just waiting for pollution to kind of die down, but I'm curious about testing the before and after, like I said. So, what's curious about it is that, and I'll show this in a second once I'm done adding the new domes here. Okay, so this is in a good spot. We'll put this down here. And there's 15 times 4 of the spawners. Cool, that's all set up. And then we'll prepare already for sending the new signal, which we're not quite at the point yet of needing it. But we'll go ahead and turn both those things off. And then we can connect it later once these all die. Okay, great. So, interesting thing so far is the pollution cloud hasn't shrunk quite yet, but the values are a lot lower than previously. So if I look at showing the pollution values here, so out here there's like 3,000. This used to be at least a little bit higher before. So if I'm looking at like the original amounts, like what I'd be concerned about is like in this area here. So this used to be in like the 15,000 something kind of range, and this has died down pretty significantly. Like there's still a couple areas that have these 11,000, 12,000 chunks, and this is going to take a really long time. So if you look at like minus 1.89 per minute, right, like naturally, that would be 13,189 divided by 1.89. So that's in the terms of minutes. That's 116 hours, right? But 2% of that amount is leaking to a neighboring chunk, and that goes both ways. So my thought process right now is by creating these, like in the original epicenter where pollution used to be, I'm creating these pollution absorbers here, right? And so what's already kind of happened just from looking at the values yesterday is that this area here was in the like 20,000 range. Well, now this is much lower, but it is constantly absorbing pollution because this is grabbing. And let me remove the other parts so this is at least a little bit less difficult to see. I'll take the expansion candidate chunks off. So here where it's saying like 4,000, right? 6,000, 7,000. All these chunks in this area, and you can see just how quickly that expands to being like 12,000 out here. But what I'm noticing is like, if you think about it, this is where the original lab setup was right in this area, right? So it would stand to also reason that like I would expect, since I just added those, that this would be higher respectively compared to the other side. Because what I would expect is, since it acts like a cloud, I'd expect this side to be lower as you went further out, and that it would be slowly seeping back. I guess I'm wrong with that. It probably is just even, right? It's going to evenly distribute from both sides. So just 2% of that is additionally every 64 ticks is going to move in another direction. So if there's no source of pollution constantly driving it and this is acting as a sponge, this should effectively help retrieve and bring back all the pollution back to this main center. So this is just going to act like a vacuum. We're going to let our new spawners continue to work, and we'll come back after the pollution has cleared up a little bit. Alright, so update number 442. Pollution now has completely been removed now from the hub, pretty much. There's a little bit of pollution hanging around here and lingering in the middle, but that's kind of to be expected as things kind of leak through. And there's also no pollution absorption, really, other than just the trees that happen to be in this area. So we'll keep those just for now so that this area can kind of sink into that. But overall, these biter domes are doing really good. I've added one more bank, which we are currently in the process of building. And ignore this flashing light, I am expanding solar down here. So just adding a whole bunch of new legendary solar panels. Because I ultimately want to get completely away from my reactor setup and just use solar, because it's free UPS-wise. Because it just basically calculates each of the individual ones and just knows the total number of solar panels that you have, and then that's a constant that it's just computing every single tick for the electrical network. So that being said, these biter domes are doing a great job. So what are we looking at? So like, in the last few hours, they've reduced, if we remember, this was like 30,000 something. Now we're close to 2,400. And that's also with all this extra area leaking at 2%, right? So that's 300 or 600, per tick that leaks into here. So these are constantly soaking those up. So that's pretty good when it was at the max rate. So this slows down in terms of effectiveness over time. But because this was so saturated, this is really, really nice for kind of slowing down or rather absorbing the pollution. So they're really good when you have like this huge of a cloud that has been created to kind of start to slowly reduce it. All right, so since these are almost done, I'll unlock these and then I'll run this for a few more hours and see if we can still get these pollution clouds completely down. My assumption is this is still going to take, multiple days to fully, like real life time game days for this to completely reduce and shrink to nothingness, but we'll slowly get there. But this area is already looking really promising. All right, so at the time of recording, we are now well into the 30-hour mark of no pollution and no items producing anything, and we are slowly ramping up our pollution reduction factors. So the trees have kind of done the maximum they could, and they've completely cleared out their area, which you can see here. We have a very nice pollution-free hub. So, you're also seeing the biter domes doing a wonderful job completely clearing their pollution cloud. I had to update basically the amount of bioflux that I'm importing now into Nauvis, because the amount that I was basically getting was not enough to supply the amounts of capture bot rockets that I'm constantly consuming. So that is just, this thing is effectively just constantly running to keep up with the demand. But I've added now a couple more biter domes. So we have one down here doing work, over here, and down here. And if we're looking at pollution values here, let's get rid of the other statistics. This is still doing work, you know, slowly but surely. You know, pollution is backporting, coming back. We're slowly removing all the pollution that's in here. So it's has the pollution cloud shrunk itself a little tiny bit, and this is going to be a very long process, I'm realizing, because I've just run science for so long without any pollution control methods. But we're starting to see out here, ever so slowly, tiny bits of reduction, and we're very, very slowly seeing the cloud kind of eventually get to a point. Right now it's holding strong out here, but I'm assuming that's still the spread of these very large polluted chunks still kind of coming out here. So hopefully by holding it back at the main base and having a full sink area here, we're going to slowly see the pollution values continue to come down. So like around this area, you're seeing this is all now 600. This used to be, you know, 3,000, 15,000, etc. Just really large numbers. That's all shrunk down, which is good. And it's having a cascading effect as all these areas slowly leak 2% pollution all the way back into these sinks. So they're overshooting now. This is too much for this area. But we will see soon, hopefully soon, just soon, that the pollution cloud will go away. I'm like half tempted at this point, just so that I don't have to constantly import more and more Bioflux to keep up with demand, to just put some actual, just the other types of biters and the biter spawners around to and then just destroy them afterwards with artillery. And yeah, and in fact, let's go do that. Let's find a really polluted area, like in this pollution cloud. Let's see, up here, this is 4,000. Do we have a 15,000er? We got a 9,000 in this area. What about over here in no man's land? Oh, we got an 11,000 chunk out here. Ooh, that's good. There's 10,000 out there. That's a good chunk. How about out here? Ooh, 11,000. All right, let's get a couple of these out there. All right, so let's go ahead and start adding new pollution biter zoos out here. I'm going to put a couple of these littered around. Let's put a couple of these out here. We can deal with the extra biters. Why not? And we will have all these beautiful, wonderful Spidertrons build everything for us out here. And then we just need to get some power going. So let's go ahead and just connect all this stuff up here. Boom. Boom. And then you know what? I'm going to not have the need on this planet. I'm just going to basically say this is not going to be necessary for what we're doing. We don't need perfection. And let's see what this looks like. Let's go get some of the mayhem going on here for pollution control. Enable some of these. Let's get more going. And just for good measure, we put them directly, some extra ones out here, into their territory. So into the biter territory, we have in their face said we are going to be using this to clear pollution. Yeah, the ethics of this, I don't even want to think about, but it works, and it's cheap, except for UPS, but that's fine because hopefully the trees will eventually be able to cover it, and these can just, okay, I'm feeling like the arch nemesis in the movie at this point, by just constantly just sending all these biters out to their doom. Anyway, so we have now these other ones that are going to hatch here momentarily, and when they do, then we'll have another area, because this area has also extremely high pollution value, so hopefully they can soak up some pollution over here and cost us effectively nothing, so... And there you go, we just hatched another one. Please, continue to take pollution away. I beg of you. I think a wise man once said, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So I've added a few more biter zoos to the mix so that we can absorb the pollution a little bit faster. So we have several more on the northwest coordinate, the north facing side. We have now more on the east, southeast border. We have them on the outside here. We have some in this region. So hopefully all of these combined will help just lower pollution value
values faster with no cost at all other than UPS. And I don't care at the moment about UPS, which is crazy to say because I never thought I would say this. But right now, I don't care because I'm not running science. So sure, we can eat the cost. So this is not bad at all. And I'm fine with eating the cost of it for a little bit, just as the units continue to spawn out here in the polluted zones, and hopefully they can consume some of the pollution out here. The trees continue to do their work. The biter domes are here. We're pulling in all the stops to try to get the pollution cloud to come down faster. At least whatever we can do. And if I need to bring up more, fine, I will get more. I can always clear this stuff with artillery later. Alright, anyway, I'm starting to act like a crazy person. We'll keep waiting.
So, I might have been a little bit overambitious here with what I could potentially do. I basically put all these biter spawners out here, and then realized that the laser spawners that I'm using have to be normal quality. Well, I have ramped up production on legendary and epic and all those things, but, well, never did the normal quality, and, well, we don't have enough lasers out here now, and so I'm gonna have to be kind of playing defense for a little bit with some robots. I've taken the old base and I have drastically increased production of science, or not of science, but of the batteries here. So we are trying desperately to increase the amount of batteries that we are currently taking out of here, but it is a yeah. So we are taking the old base that has existed for a long time and drastically increasing the production. And this old base with its completely dried out patches is doing its best now to kind of compensate and ramp up in production speed here. So good luck to me, especially once this comes out with barely any lasers at all. So and that reminds me that I need to quickly get the other Spidertron patrol unit out there to start helping. Oh gosh. I will say, if you've never actually made Spidertrons in Factorio, they are the most wonderful thing to work with. I mean, just look how quickly they're laying down. Just at least all I have them doing is just laying down the grid, or effectively, like, that's all they're doing is just laying down the grid, and then the rest of the robots come in with the other couple things that they need. It is so quick and efficient to just build everything at scale. So yeah, we're sending some artillery across the map. We are now doing so well with pollution that this whole area in the middle just is completely pointless. So we're going to start eradicating some nests so that I can also quickly get some more laser turrets, because these need laser turrets pretty quickly, and you know, this area doesn't. So let's eradicate some of these, because we're just not going to need these anymore. And let's just start removing these in the middle, and we'll get rid of those. And then once those are all completely removed, then what we'll do is we will, and because you can see the biter's not even moving anymore because the pollution is no longer needed, so these are completely pointless. Or rather, the pollution is not high enough, so yeah, let's just for fun, let's watch these artillery strikes hit something. So yeah, this is going to be overkill, but why not? Cool. So they're going to remove all the biter nests that are in here, and then I can just easily go in and start removing all of these lasers. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful times here. Ladies and gentlemen, with the recent changes so far, we are up to 630,000 pollution per minute. Can we hit 1 million? That is the question. I don't know. We'll see. So we'll have a couple more of these to hatch. So we've got all these here, and then if we continue with the debauchery, we'll add even more, and we'll circle around here, and let's just see how high we can crank the pollution per minute number. Well, we've run into our first hurdle with this mechanic. I don't have anything active around this. These enemies don't move. See them? They only move when I start moving my Spidertrons around them. These over here, finally moving. But they will just constantly sometimes just stick around like these. Why? Why are you not moving? I need you to move. I need you to remove pollution. Oh, there's just not enough pollution in that area. That's fine, we'll come by. We'll manually trigger you. Let's get some more pollution out. More pollution. More. As I've been doing this experiment, I've noticed that the chart update time has gone up significantly, even though I've removed almost all the radars, so I don't know what that statistic is. It's apparently just for radars, but if I have almost no radars, then I don't know. But interesting is that we are now doubled the chart update time. Maybe it has to do with pollution removal? I'm not sure, but that number going up is interesting.
So yeah, this whole problem of them just not deciding to move until either I look at them or something is an interesting mechanic, because they just decide to just sit there, and I think it's the game trying to optimize for how many enemies I'm trying to have spawn all the time. So I don't blame them, but like, here's like the pollution values are definitely high enough for them to absorb something, but they're just not moving. So yeah, they're not as not doing their job. So sometimes they move and sometimes they just don't. So if you're like not looking at a certain area like this quickly, if I go look at it, then okay, they're now sitting here idly. Eventually they'll get triggered to move, but I don't know. So my solution that I've done over here is I just have a Spidertron kind of patrol the area near them, the chunks, and then they just tend to continue to move. So that's good at least. Yeah, this whole biter mechanics is really interesting. So why aren't you moving? I need you to move.
You know what? Let's pop into the editor and come over here. Let's go and change the surface area. Let's see what happens if we change the enemies. And we wind up saying, let's see. Enemy expansions being sent out. Let's crank that all the way down. Let's go down to 1 minute. Can we go down to 1 minute? No. Can I go down to 2? All right, 5. It's a minimum cooldown for the enemy expansions being sent out. And then maximum expansion distance. Let's just make it as small as possible. And then minimum group size. Let's make it. So, okay. Let's go with 4. Oh no, we'll just try it. I already had those achievements disabled and I've already got them all, so. Okay, confirm. Well, that changed some things for enemy expansions. Let's see if that helps keep them moving. It looks like the expansion distance didn't make any real impact. They still don't move around like this. I increased it to the max setting and decreased it to the smallest setting, and there really doesn't seem to be behavior in keeping the units moving. So pollution right now, absorption is still about the same over the last like 10 minutes, even though, so we're still hovering around 500,000 pollution per minute that's being moved from the environment. So it's a pretty decent number, but it also means I just have a lot of downtime because of these units just not moving around. So we're gonna go and change back the settings back to default settings. I'll have to look those up, but we'll set these back down to the normal amount. So, figured out another interesting mechanic. As long as you have a Spidertron somewhere in the area, near them, then the biters are consistently basically moving. As long as they're, I don't know exactly the distance, but as long as they're kind of close to that area, then the biters are always considered to be active, and then that they will continue to move around. I don't know if it's because of the radar coverage or because it's considered a unit, so to speak. But it's interesting, so I've parked these all across the map, and so you'll see like these areas were never consistently walking, but now because of Spidertron somewhere in the area, I don't know what the distance is, they tend to now move all the time. Whereas like an area that doesn't have a Spidertron around it, which at this point is pretty much everything, I've pretty much put a Spidertron at least in the proximity somewhere. So like this one doesn't have a Spidertrons in it. So these have areas where there's not a lot of unit activity, or at least movement. So it's interesting to me, and I don't know if that's exactly true, but I have started to observe the behavior. So like here, these aren't moving. I'm trying to find an example of ones. Yeah, here. These aren't moving at all. So let me bring a Spidertron in, and I'm gonna park him right there. Yep, once he gets in the area, now they start to go and do something. Perfect. So yeah, so now they're moving. I don't know exactly. Oh god, no, don't move. No, I had perfectly placed you. Oh no. Although the enemies are spawning more often, I'm not seeing them join attack groups more often.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring all the Spidertrons back from where they currently were. And we'll try to navigate around water if we can. And they're all stuck. But what I'm doing right now with all these bots out here is I'm just basically removing the trees to hopefully have a better pathfinding for them. That's maybe the next thing that I'm gonna try. So in recording this, I realized that there's an attack cost modifier, and I was just messing with this. So this was at 2% a second ago. For some reason, my attack cost modifier is at 50%. So let's crank that up to 100% and see if that makes any difference at all. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. Holy crap. Apparently I had, when I changed the settings for the biters, I made a clerical error in the settings that I changed. So, okay. So that was 5 million per minute in a spike. Holy crap, is this so much better. This is what I was testing with, and now this makes so much more sense for the... I was like, hold on, something's different. Yeah. So, basically the attack cost modifier by default is 100%. So now they're gonna send more enemies out more often, and that makes a huge difference. So, okay, that should really help the Bioflux a lot. Oh my gosh. All right. And we're immediately seeing the effect. Wow, these are so much more effective than they were a second ago. So, okay, so now I know what's going on. So I realized what was going on. So because I was a death world, I just looked up the statistics for it. That's why I'm at a pollution modifier of 50%. So in a death world, your pollution is basically the attack cost modifier is set to 50 instead of 100%. And the time factor is set to 200, right? So I didn't, basically, when I went and reduced everything, did not go down quite as, like, to the amount that I needed it to be at. So that's why these fighters, like zoos, were not as effective. So if you're not on default settings and you're on the, effectively just the settings for a death world, then these biter zoos are only half as effective. Which makes sense, because now we're hovering close to 1 million, whereas 10 minutes ago we were at 500k, so that makes a huge difference. So just personally, because I don't want to wait 2,000 hours for this, we're going to go crank it to the max and just see what number we can get to. So let's just go here, advanced. Let's go to diffusion ratio. How much is diffused into a chunk? That's 2% by default. Let's crank that. How high can we go? Can we go to 100? At 25, okay. And then attack cost modifier, how much pollution is consumed to send a biter to attack. Let's... There we go. Modifier of how much pollution absorbed by trees and tiles. Let's just crank everything, just so that we can just reduce pollution faster so I can get back to my actual testing. Cool. Alright, quick, out of editor. Where are we at? Oh boy, there we go. There we go. Everything is reducing pollution. 5 million per minute. Oh my god. Oh, this is fun. Let's watch these numbers drastically drop. That might also cause some instability, but yeah, those numbers are going down now, which is great. Let's see the pollution cloud on the outskirts here. So is this going down or going up? So yeah, this is kind of creating an imbalance with the pollution cloud. This is so fascinating. Alright, so it is, and it also is interesting, you can see here that scans from left to right. But alright, that should help me so I don't have to wait an entire week to have this happen. But at least I still want it to kind of naturally happen. I know I'm messing with the editor, but I'm having a good time, and I think that's the point of the game, right? Is just to have fun, so let's do this. Let's have everything cranked, let's run, let's get some pollution removed. So, yeah, I'm cranking down the diffusion ratio. I thought it would be helpful because then more of the chunks that are in this area would diffuse back to here. No, it went the opposite direction. So now I have biters, the map is expanded again, and I have more biters to take out in around the corners, and yeah, so I'm gonna go and go on a killing spree now to get rid of them all. But yeah, diffusion ratio is back to normal, and we're gonna let that kind of go normally, which will most likely reduce my pollution amount, yeah, drastically. But yeah, I do not want it to constantly be consuming pollution so much and diffusing so fast that the pollution cloud grows as fast as it was. So we're gonna dial that back. Alright, so even more time has passed, and the pollution cloud is looking a whole bunch better. This whole area is completely cleared out from the center. Now we're just kind of waiting for the outer ring to get absorbed. But yeah, so I've cranked a couple settings here in the editor. So I wound up changing the absorption rate from the tiles just to be at 400%. I'll bring it down afterwards. But I wound up increasing it mainly just to expedite the process, because otherwise I'll be sitting here 4 times as long. So given the amount of time that has currently elapsed without running any science, it's been, if you look at this is a 50-hour graph. This is when we were generating pollution. This is almost at the 40-hour mark again back then. So when I calculated originally, I was like, all right, I know this is going to take several days, not like just a couple days, right? So like probably even like a week for this to completely die down to nothing, give or take a day. So by increasing it to 400%, I'm just going to allow this to die down a little bit faster. All right, 11 hours have passed. It's time for the grand reveal. Let's see how the pollution control has done. Wait, did I turn it on? Oh, no way. Oh, of course autosave is coming in the middle of this. Okay, that's fine, whatever. So, the pollution cloud is now literally just isolated to the areas that don't actually have any tile absorption. So, they just cap out at 15, and there's no spread anymore. I could nuke the ground to have that happen, but I think I'll just leave it here. That's completely fine. So we've completely removed pollution from Nauvis. Fantastic. Okay, well, let the siege montage begin as we go through and have to manually clear every single one of these. Also, I'm trying to hit 120 UPS for this particular sequence, just so that you guys can watch the UPS numbers through this montage here kind of slowly go up over time, just so you get a kind of a sense of how much these biter domes were costing me, even though nothing else is running currently in the base. The biter domes are a little bit more tricky to destroy, so I'm sending in some Spidertrons to go and help out. They're going to go into each of the different regions over here. I've already removed the rocket pods, so they all have naturally decayed at this point, while we were going through and destroying all the rest of them. And what we're going to do now is we will send artillery in here, but this will allow them to start spawning, so in the meantime, the Spidertrons should hopefully be able to take care of it, but I am going to be a little bit more mindful of the area here, and there will be some collateral damage, which hopefully the bots don't come in and eradicate it, or do anything that they shouldn't be doing. Nicely done. On to the next one. Alright, so it's time to start removing all of the spider zoos that were surrounding the base and slowly cleaning up all those so we don't have extra radar coverage and then extra lasers in general, but they served their purpose. Well, that's pretty funny looking. They're flying in perfect circle formations, just like the biter zoos were in their original form. They look like birds migrating in the wintertime. That's too funny. Alright, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. Can we start this whole thing back up? And what does the pollution cloud look like after we start everything up? So we're going to do a couple prep checks here first. First of all, making sure that the clocks are all connected and that we have everywhere a signal that all these trees are constantly running. I have already checked that all the pollution settings are back to default settings, not the Death World settings, but the default settings, because I'd like to run this now basically normal again. And now we're just going to have to go to our science control panel, and let's go ahead and dump all of the Gleba science, and let's see if all the exhaust mechanisms work. Look at that. Get rid of all this garbage. Let's let it completely drain through the system. Perfect. Get fresh new Gleba science in. Completely running through. The bots are running perfectly. Loving it. And let's go and watch our planet, or the space planet. Let's see where we're at. So these are all at 50% freshness. Alright. These have been sitting for a while. So let these completely drain out. Make sure that we don't have any throughput problems. We'll just continue to monitor that we can effectively just... These belts should be constantly running. The drainage mechanisms should be able to completely destroy them. We can monitor that here as well. Let's watch our agriculture science. In the last 10 minutes, alright, we're destroying 230,000 a minute. Great. One thing that I haven't mentioned is I run spoiled first for all the agriculture science packs, instead of fresh first. And the reason being, and I specifically request something that's over 200 here, I do that intentionally so that there's always the chance for there to be more agriculture science in these packs, so you can choose like the freshest or the least fresh option out of these stacks as they sit here. Otherwise, you'll just have basically some that just will never get used, and they'll just sit here as a buffer like this. And then what the idea is that naturally, by just always inserting the least fresh items first, you'll wind up actually having the freshest items in the requester chests. I probably should add some lights. This is very dark, but we can always add some more aesthetics later. Let's first figure out if this whole new setup is functional. Alright, so the ships are on their way back to go and pick up fresh new Gleba science. And that's going to take a little bit for agriculture science to completely get back up to its normal pace. So, have all the bots here just
dealing with, I guess I just have pollution or basically all of the spoilage that's in the system that they're going to remove so that we can start fresh again. Alright, we got 91% freshness coming out of the labs, out of the rockets immediately, which is good. I'm assuming that will start to come up as we start to get new fresh imports here. And those should start coming now from all of the farms. So, as all the wonderful trains come in, constantly delivering new fresh products here, hopefully this freshness value will start to come up. And we'll start to see basically the Gleba science get up to its paces, and then we're going to start running research productivity for a while and just see how the whole system holds up. Alright, so now this is running for a while. Let's see what the freshness is that we're getting now back on Nauvis. Alright, the freshness that's coming in here is about 80%. So then we should, and let's actually monitor the ships that are above. So these are coming back to Gleba. This one's currently loading. We're getting right around 90% freshness. This will start to continue to go up over time, but I'm going to say that is good enough. We'll turn off the forced destruction of everything here. And I'm going to lock out the system just so that we don't continue to destroy anything or have the automatic timer go and destroy things. We can turn it on later if we want to, and perfect. Everything got the signal. Everyone sees that this icon is off, and everything is turned back off, and we're ready to go. System is primed. Awesome. Alright, let's start back up with research productivity. And nothing should be running right now. Great. Alright, let's start kicking them on like generators. There comes the first bank. Turn on the second one. Third one. And the fourth one. Let's watch this. This should all be streaming in from the side. Awesome. I still need to update my monitor here, but we'll get to that soon. Let's kick on the second banks. And let's go full throttle. And let's see our pollution cloud. Alright, so the trees are starting to absorb some of the pollution. Biolabs are starting to come up. Check for all the labs that they're running. We should at this point be half flow rate. Oh, I forgot to turn on this bank down here. That would be important. There, the bots going crazy. I love it. Alright, that should get us up to the extra number. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Alright, that goes above 2 million. And we missed another bank. Uh-oh. I miscopied a setting over here. There we go. Alright, now we're really starting to crank pollution again. So you can see that there's a large pollution cloud that's going to be kind of forming over here. There's going to be a center over here and a center over here, which makes sense. So some things that I can think about is, again, more tree farms in this area. Maybe just even having a wall over here, just something to soak up some of this pollution.
But if this should be relatively way less pollution compared to the biolabs. So we're talking about like 20K from assembly machines. So we'll see how much this goes, and then we'll decide on if we want to even just throw like a biter dome or some of those things in that area. But things for us to continue to explore. Let's switch to a research that requires agriculture science. So let's go for stronger explosives here. And let's just see how the system handles that. So I'm curious, we're slightly dipping down, and I'm curious what's going on. And I'm wondering if it has to do with freshness. Yes, this only has 86%, and then down the line, where are we at? Well, this is constantly running. We've got freshness down here, that's fine. Like 80. It's not ideal, but... And now the furthest lab away would be the worst. That's still not bad at 81. I'd like that to get higher. Is anything unbalanced from the inputs here? No, that's completely fine. And that's constantly running. Looks good. Except for purple, and that makes sense because we're not using it right now. So what is causing us to slow down? One of the input belts. That all looks good. Well, let's look at then basically the gaps. Okay, so I'm assuming these down here are just not going to get Gleba science. So since we're at 81%, I'm going to need to add, yeah, right here. We're missing agriculture science. Okay. So since as freshness comes up, we can continue to see what this looks like, but like right now, this not having the highest freshness, what I'm going to do is I'll make a modification, and I'm going to take this setup here, and we're going to add a couple more requesters. So for this area and this area, and then I will copy this, and then we will go and I'm going to, let's see, how do I have this connected? This just comes in with green wire from there. Okay, and then that's here, so we could just connect this over or make this a little bit cleaner and connect there. Okay, so this is good. So let's copy this and bring it over one more. Because we're at 80%, so we'll try this just to see if this will help offset things. And I'll copy this setting. As long as we have just in time from the Gleba science that's coming in, I'm fine with it. Like if this number ever gets to 0, we have an issue. We should have 100% now, so we should be able to go and launch. May have to change that value. Let's see, 480K. Oh yeah, I need to change this so that we can actually monitor it correctly. There we go. We're at 100% here. We'll change this number as well. Just my little monitoring dashboard here. So that's low, 12%, and then we're going to slowly increase that value over time. Great. Science, 27%. This is on its way back. Great. So I'm going to let this run then overnight, and we'll just see if we can sustain at 4.4 million with the new lab setup running stronger explosives. Good morning, Vietnam. Alright, I'm not Robin Williams, but it is the morning after we have been running this overnight. And I was looking at production graph statistics because I'd really like to be fully capping out at the 4.4 mil, but I noticed that, like, I don't think it's an issue with Gleba science, because Gleba's, I wound up adding last night an extra ship just to balance out to increase the freshness. And that worked out for a while. But it's not Gleba that's the issue, fascinatingly enough. What I noticed was we have, looking at debug options here, these the utility science, which I haven't redone, is having now an issue, which has never historically had an issue before. So there's gaps now that's coming in, and the new science monitor that I have is only monitoring now this small section here. So it does a good job of breaking up and like detecting whenever there is an issue. So when you see those little gaps right there of the flickering status on the yellow, basically the status symbol, like 98%, that means that we're not running at full capacity. I was trying to troubleshoot it back, and I saw that, okay, there's transport line gaps, and what I wound up doing was I tried to add something else to balance this out just to see if this happened to be an issue, because like this side's completely fine in getting, you know, this is completely backed up. This isn't having an issue. But as I continued to look and I was trying to figure it out, I started noticing, okay, well, we're missing a lot more of, for some reason, low density structures. And then as I went back, I noticed calcite is just not getting delivered fast enough. So my 1-1 trains may not be enough. And I think the main reason is now the distance they have to travel is so much further now compared to before, because it was right here and they could just come into this area and then just quickly beeline down here. Now they have to make an extra trip to go all the way around here to get there. So what I might wind up doing is I might have to go away from my 1-1 trains, and that's kind of now an issue. Is I no longer have a throughput problem in exporting it, but I have a problem in transporting it. So switch to a 2-4 train setup here. This will most likely work a little bit better. So we'll see how this winds up happening now for unloading, but this should quadruple the throughput. Alright, so after those changes, looks like we are now completely stable with agriculture science, which is really awesome because before the lab setup that I had before, I wasn't able to completely utilize the Gleba science production that I had just due to some different issues with timing. So seems like now we've stabilized. We're running around, on average, about 258k a minute. The setup now is, we got 90% freshness now coming into the first lab, and then the first lab afterward is also right around here at 90%. And all these are pretty much staying consistently at right around 89, 90%, but you're seeing that like 1% drop off. And then the last lab is just due to it's sitting around for a little bit here, winds up being a little bit less than that. But, so, what I've opted for is I've added a few more roboports here, just so that whenever they do actually have to, the bots have to bring the additional amount of agriculture science to just these first 4 labs, then they wind up just having immediately a place to charge, so they don't have to go and travel out here. So just trying as best as possible to reduce their travel distance. So this has been running successfully. We don't have any more backups of utility science thanks to the new calcite export, which is way faster than is actually needed. So now basically at least the trains have like a lot more capacity than I currently had or am needing. So seems like consistently we haven't had an issue anymore with calcite, and that bottleneck is now completely fixed, which is great. So now after a little while of running this again, let's see if the pollution cloud has changed. Seems like it's grown slightly in this direction here. But still, overall, this is still decently smaller than it was, like a lot smaller than it was before. So I'm really confident in the pollution cloud at this point, even to the point where I'm fine with just going ahead and removing all of my defenses. So they've been around since the very beginning of my playthrough and have been doing a great job continuing with the random outbreaks that I have with units, but I am so confident now that with new pollution tactics that we are not going to have an issue anymore with pollution. So I'm going to go ahead and just start removing all of my defense mechanisms around the entirety of the base. So pretty bold move, I know, but I'm just going to go ahead and just do it and just let the bots go and fly and remove it all. And just the thought there is just less entities that are currently at least for the electrical network to have to compute. So we'll just go ahead and completely get rid of them. All right, so we have completely torn down our defenses. We're now, I guess, one with nature, or whatever you want to call it. There should be, other than the trains that are currently going around, and a couple just in case ever we get some biter eggs that go on the loose, we are pretty much not needing turret coverage at all. I have left the trains. I've parked them now here in their final destination. I'm just going to not make them move anymore. They can just stay here. And with the current turret damage research that I've got, that's plenty of coverage for most of the base. I don't need it anymore. Why? Alright, so how long have we been running this at this point? So I let this run for almost a full 24 hours at this point. And specifically, I've been just wanting to see what would happen if we have just how big the pollution would get, basically, right? So that's the final amount here. Pollution, I think, has now completely stabilized. And I'll let this run again for maybe another 48 hours or something like that. So that might not be done by the time that I get to actually publishing the video. So if it does increase, I'll definitely follow up. We've got plenty more to do on this base. But pollution crowd is already substantially smaller than before, right? It used to come all the way out here. Like the whole border was pollution before. So this is already a huge difference just from surrounding this with a couple of tree farms. So what have we otherwise changed? So now I've been running stronger explosives, and basically I've been checking some of the changes that I've made to Gleba and the new ships that are now transporting items back to Nauvis. And looking at the last 10 hours here, we are at a solid 4.4 million with Gleba. So that's a huge leg up. Before I could only run about 4 million and change, and I had to have a whole bunch of circuit logic to kind of help with the back pressure that was happening. So at this point, looking at the last 10 hours, other than the random like spots of spoilage as things kind of like lay around, our consumption rate has been rock solid. So Gleba's doing great. We haven't had any issues in the last 10 hours. This is running fine. And the biggest thing that I'm really liking right now, and I don't know if this is yet because of the UPS improvements we've made or not, but I can finally actually look at my hub and not be under 60 UPS, which is awesome. It was so annoying to look at this and get like maybe 50 or 60, like basically floating in the like low 50s or so. So that's some exciting stuff. So that's where we're kind of at. So we've got now a wonderful brand new hub that's here. And we've made the improvements to Gleba. And overall now we've got a pollution cloud that is, I think, completely stable. So if this takes in 10 hours all the way coming out here, I mean, I guess we could just look at it, right? So pollution consumption and production, the dying trees are absorbing pretty much all of those biolabs there. Not a problem at all. The rest is like about 30K and change, right? So if you look at that, then there might be a slight overhead. If you're looking at this here, there's about 40K there, so 50, 60. So this might expand slightly just with the tiles themselves, but this makes me kind of just wonder too, if there's even a benefit to just kind of having a small tree farm next to your big polluters. You may not even need to completely surround it, but just having somewhere for the pollution to get absorbed just occasionally, just having a small amount of them. These loops seem pretty good, and clocking them seems to be not too bad UPS-wise, so I know that it's already going to be a huge improvement for me that I don't have to go kill biters ever again, because it's such a painstaking thing to do. I don't know if it's better for UPS yet. I'll probably do some tests at some point. Maybe I'll run mining prod and run it with all the trees, and then the next step would be just to let the pollution cloud grow, and then at certain fixed rates without the trees running, just see like how much is the UPS going to be consumed by being at, like, let's say 2x or 3x distance out away from the base. I'm not going to do that in this video, as this one's already, I'm assuming, going to be very, very long. So if you made it this far in the video, first off, thank you for bearing with me, as I think I lost my mind a little bit in the pollution control tactics that I was trying out for this video. So I had a whole bunch of fun recording it, so hopefully you appreciate it as well. This is over the course of about 6 days that this whole entire journey happened, and I was happy to share with everyone here. So what's the next steps? So we have already a way more performant lab setup that's here, but right now I've been on and off as this has been running in the evenings,
I've been working on with some people on my Discord channel a completely new lab setup because I really want to get stack inserters to work, and I think I'm close to cracking it, but I haven't finalized it yet. So if you're interested in some of those updates, go ahead and join my Discord. I have a link in the video description and also on my main channel. Other than that, so that's kind of the next thing I'm exploring. Can I still squeeze out any more UPS out of a new lab setup? So I know I just completely redesigned it in this video, but you know, at least the location will be the same. I just need a new overall lab setup, so I might have to drain it again, but yeah, it's fine. These are just growing pains of normal mega base stuff. So stay tuned for that. As always, thank you so much for watching. My name is abucnasty. Have a wonderful rest of your day.